And welcome to Answers for Living. We're exploring the subject of the soon return of Jesus for his church. And we have discovered that there are signs of his return, and they are called birth pains. And those signs, just like birth pains, are increasing in frequency and intensity today. But has there ever been a period in the history of the world since Jesus lived on the earth when this was not the case? Can you imagine what it was like to be a believer in Rome under the Emperor Caligula or Nero or Domitian? To know that you, because of your faith, you would face the arena or being burned at the stake or being fed to lions because of your faith? No wonder they thought Jesus was returning soon. And what do you think the church might have thought when Attila the Hun overran Europe in the 5th century? And there were so many murders and deaths that you couldn't count the number. And he took captive the churches and the monasteries and slew the monks. Or what about when the Vikings in the 9th century overran Europe? Or when Genghis Khan in the 13th century was founding the Mongolian Empire? One of the largest empires in history, leaving a trail of blood and destruction behind. Or when the Muslim Turks in the 16th century started the extermination of its ethnic Armenian population, resulting in the death of 1.5 million Armenians. And might anyone have concluded that the end was near when Black Death decimated Christendom, wiping out entire towns and claiming more than 25 million lives in 5 years, which was almost 1/3 of the continent's population? And how did the situation look to believers at the beginning of the 20th century, when the so-called Great War destroyed the flower of an entire generation? 41 million casualties, World War I. Or a few decades later, when Hitler and the Third Reich killed 20 million Jews and special needs people and anyone who didn't fit into the Aryan race. Clearly, our generation has no monopoly on death and disaster and devastation and terror. So throughout AD history, we have had significant times when the church could have thought Jesus is returning for his church really soon, but he did not return. But is there anything in the 21st century that makes this time different, that makes us believe Jesus is returning very soon? And here's the answer: Israel. The existence of the nation of Israel. Israel had to exist to make any sense of what the Bible calls the Great Tribulation. And Israel had to exist to make any sense out of the second coming of Christ to establish the promised kingdom of God on the earth. But the nation of Israel did not exist for the last 1900 years. But Israel was born a nation in one day, and it fulfilled biblical prophecy. And Israel's rebirth as a nation began the imminent countdown to the end of the church age.